Hello. Tonight, we drift into the hush of an ancient mountain monastery where the air is rich with the scent of pine and sandalwood, and the gentle hush of evening bells hangs like mist in the distance. You sit beneath a low paper lantern, its golden glow warming your cheeks as a slow breeze curls through the garden, stirring the fallen camellia petals at your feet. Crickets are beginning their nightly recital, and the last faint streak of sun has dipped behind the dark shoulder of the hills. But inside, a storm brews, not a loud one, nothing dramatic. No thunderbolts, no shouting, just a quiet agitation, a restlessness you can't quite name, like a knot you can't untie. And you realize with a small sigh that you've carried it with you all day, the tension in your shoulders, the shortness in your breath, the quiet clench of the jaw. You, a student of stillness, a seeker of peace, are angry, gently, uncomfortably angry, and you probably won't survive this feeling, not if you try to fight it the usual way. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where are you listening from tonight? What time is it for you right now, in this stillness? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk slowly through the monastery's moonlit paths, your sandals whispering over smooth stones. In the garden, the elder monk is pruning a bonsai tree with the care of someone listening to music only they can hear. You watch him for a moment, and he senses you there. His hands still. He turns to you, his eyes glinting with candlelight, and simply says, "Walk with me." You follow. Neither of you speak at first. The monastery breathes around you. The walls hum with age. The paper windows ripple with the night wind, and somewhere a kettle begins to boil. He leads you past the koi pond, where reflections shimmer like dreams half remembered, and down a gravel path into the heart of the garden. Then quietly he says, "You are angry." You flinch slightly, caught in the gentle trap of his awareness. But you nod. You are angry, not in the way a child stomps and shouts. It's more like a warmth under the skin, a heat that has overstayed its welcome. He stops beside a lantern, gestures to the stone bench beneath a cherry tree. Sit. You sit, and he studies you for a moment, not with judgment, but curiosity, like one might regard a flame or a bird's cry. "And what form does this anger take?" he asks. You think? It's like a ripple that won't stop moving. Like, I want to lash out, not at anything in particular, just out. The elder nods slowly. A ripple that wants to become a wave. You nod, grateful that he understands. He closes his eyes, breathes once. In the Dhammapada, he says the Buddha taught, "He who is not angry, though he has cause for anger, he alone is truly strong." You sit with that, truly strong, not because you crush anger, but because you allow it to rise, and then bow before it gently. The elder begins a story. There was once a young monk, he says, not unlike you. He tended to the herb garden at the edge of the temple grounds, far from the others. One day, a traveler came by and trampled the garden, mistaking it for a shortcut. The young monk was furious. He stomped into the meditation hall, ready to demand justice. But he was late. The teacher had already begun the session. The monk sat still, fuming flames, licking the inside of his chest. But as he sat, the strangest thing happened. He noticed he was smiling. A tiny, embarrassed smile curled at the corners of his lips. Not because he wasn't angry, but because he could see the anger fully, clearly. And it was almost adorable, like watching a kitten swat at its own tail. Later, he told his teacher what had happened. The teacher only smiled and said, "Ah, the beginning of wisdom." You laugh softly. It's strange how anger, once seen clearly, begins to soften. Not because it's wrong, but because it's not the whole story. The elder leans back, looking up into the branches. So what do you think happens when you smile at your own anger? You ponder that, not laugh at it, not judge it, just smile at it, as if to say, "I see you. You belong too." The wind rustles the cherry blossoms overhead, sending a few pale petals spiraling into your lap. And suddenly, you wonder, is anger something to fix or something to befriend? The elder stands. "Come," he says. "There's tea waiting." You rise lighter. Now the knot inside is still there, but somehow it's not as tight, as if by naming it, smiling at it, you've loosened its grip just enough to let a bit of breath back in. You walk together under a sky now jeweled with stars, the sound of your sandals mingling with the distant echo of temple bells, soft, slow, forgiving. You step quietly into the tea room, its floor polished smooth by years of soft footsteps and monastic patience. The elder gestures to a cushion near the low table. You kneel slowly, the scent of oolong and sandalwood curling upward like steam from an invisible stream. Across from you, the elder moves with unhurried grace, pouring tea into small ceramic bowls, one for himself, one for you. The steam rises between you both, and for a moment, neither speaks. Then he says it again, more softly this time. You smiled at your anger. You nod. He smiles too. That's the beginning of something. You tilt your head. But shouldn't I have been calm instead? The elder places your bowl in front of you. Hands like folded wings. Sometimes calm is a mask, he says. A disguise we wear to pretend we're not feeling something real. You blink. That lands somewhere deep. You smiled, he continues, because a part of you recognized how strange it is to be so upset, so clenched, and yet still whole, still breathing, still capable of noticing. That noticing is a kind of liberation. You wrap your hands around the warm bowl. So noticing the anger changes it. Noticing it, he says, allows it to change itself. You sip. The tea is earthy, a little smoky grounding. It carries a quiet sweetness near the end, like a song trailing off into stillness. Then he begins another story. There was once a mountain village where the sky was always filled with clouds. Dark, heavy, unending clouds. The people believed they would never see the sun again. One day, a wandering monk visited and asked for tea. The villagers complained to him, "Look at our skies, always so gray, so miserable. We are cursed." The monk looked up at the clouds, then at the tea in his hands, and said, "But these clouds brought your rain, which watered these leaves, which now become this warmth in my palms. Are the clouds not part of the blessing too?" You sip again, feeling the truth of that story in your own bones. Your anger, after all, brought you here. It walked you through the moonlit garden. It led you to this bowl of tea, to this moment of sitting still, enough to feel its edges and not be consumed. The elder says, we often want to be rid of anger, to purge it. But would you ask the sky to be only blue forever? You shake your head slowly. Even the Buddha, he continues faced Mara, his inner tempter, his inner fire. But he did not drive Mara away. He welcomed him with tea. You pause at that. He welcomed his demons. The elder smiles, eyes gleaming. He bowed to them. Outside, a wind chime sings faintly like a distant echo, remembering your name. A candle flickers beside you. Its flame moves like a breath, rising, falling, always shifting, never grasping. You glance down at the tea in your hands. So simple, so alive. You see, the elder says a teacup is shaped by what it holds, but it is also shaped by what it releases. If you never drink the tea, it stagnates. If you never release your feelings, they grow cold, bitter, forgotten. You look at the steam rising, then fading. So, I should let it go. He chuckles, gentle and warm. We don't let go as a chore. We allow things to leave when they've taught us what they came to say. That makes you think of your anger again. How it had bubbled up at someone's careless words earlier. how you'd swallowed it at first, then let it simmer all day until it spilled over, uninvited. But now, it sits beside you, like a guest, not a threat, just a presence. You speak softly. It felt like the anger was protecting me, or maybe speaking for something I didn't know how to say. The elder nods. Often, anger is a guardian of unmet needs, not a villain, just a messenger. He lifts his bowl, takes a final sip. When you smiled, you heard the message. The candle flickers again, casting long shadows across the wooden walls. You notice a tiny crack in the surface of your bowl, barely visible, and yet, somehow, it makes the bowl feel even more precious. Isn't it strange? You murmur how something so small can shift everything. The elder looks at you with kind eyes. The Buddha once said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." Sometimes that word is a smile. You sit together in silence now. The kind of silence that doesn't beg to be filled. The kind that listens. The kind that heals. And again, you feel it, that subtle warmth rising from your chest. Not burning this time, but glowing. Gentle. Like the memory of a campfire, long after it's been extinguished. Somewhere beyond the tea room, a bell chimes the turning of the hour. You imagine its echo gliding across the monastery, brushing rooftops, resting on the koi pond like a sigh. And suddenly, you realize you are not trying to escape your anger anymore. You are simply being with it. Like sitting with an old friend who doesn't need to speak to be understood. A soft thought enters your mind like a ripple in still water. What if anger, too, just wants to be seen? Then, set free, you exhale through your nose, and something leaves with it. Not all the heat, but some. Enough. Enough for now. The elder stands slowly bowing to the candle, the tea, and finally to you. You bow in return, and it feels natural, like the rain bowing to the soil, or the cloud to the mountain. You step back into the garden, where the lanterns still glow, and the wind has shifted ever so slightly. The night is deepening, and yet, so are you. The garden welcomes you back as though it remembers you from another life. Crickets continue their gentle conversation, and a soft hush hums in the spaces between leaves. You walk in silence, your bare feet brushing warm pebbles that still hold the memory of the sun. The elder walks beside you again this time, without words, and together you make your way toward a wooden pavilion at the garden's edge. It's small and open, with paper lanterns swinging gently in the breeze. A kettle waits its steam, curling into the night like a ghost of breath. The elder pours another cup this time without ceremony. Just tea and a shared silence. Then he begins again, his voice like a thread stitching the fabric of the moment. There is a story, he says, about a boy who always rushed to refill the teacups before they were empty. He thought he was being helpful. But one day, an old monk told him, "Let the cup finish itself. Let it be empty, even for just a breath." You smile faintly, watching your tea ripple. In our lives, the elder continues. We don't let our emotions empty. We top them off. Worry upon worry, anger upon anger, until the cup spills over. And then we say, "Why am I so overwhelmed?" The tea reflects your face now, soft lit by lantern light, shadowed at the edges. You take a sip and feel it. The warmth travels through you like a memory of home. Not the home with walls and a door, but the one made of presence. A home you carry inside, you waiting for quiet to return. The elder gestures toward the distant mountains, just a dark outline, now under the stars. "You see those clouds gathering?" he asks. You nod. Thunderheads are building behind the peaks. "We fear the storm," he says. But without the storm, the tea would not grow. The rain that troubles us is also the rain that nourishes. It's the same with our emotions. You watch as lightning dances across the sky, in the far distance, silent and silver. Then he says something strange. Anger is a form of rain. You blink. Rain, he nods. Yes. Not something to be blamed, just something that falls. Something that passes. The wind picks up, slightly, brushing your sleeve like a whisper. You see, the elder says a cloud is not bad for raining. It's what clouds do. Just as minds sometimes feel anger. It's not failure, it's function. What matters is how we meet it. You think about the times you've met your anger with a door slammed shut, or with words said too fast, too sharp. You think about the silent resentment that has built up like heavy clouds over days, even weeks. But what if anger is not a mistake, but a signal, a message you forgot how to read? The elder stands slowly and gestures for you to follow him again. This time, he leads you down a winding path through the garden toward a low stone bench tucked between two carefully trimmed shrubs. Here, everything is quieter. The wind hushes as if listening. Somewhere nearby, water flows a hidden stream, weaving its way through rocks and roots. The elder sits first, folding into stillness, with the elegance of someone who's done this 1,000 times. You sit beside him, the bench cool against your legs. "I want to show you something," he says, reaching into his robe. He pulls out a small, smooth rock, glossy black, and perfectly round. He sets it on the stone between you. "This is a memory stone," he explains. "Not for keeping memories, but for releasing them." He leans in, voice soft. You hold it in your hand, you breathe, and you pour your anger into it. not as punishment, not to bury it, but to let it pass through you without staying. You pick it up. It's heavier than you expected. It fits into your palm like it's always belonged there. You hold it close your eyes, and then you breathe. You breathe in slowly, and as you breathe out, you imagine the sharp edges of your anger dripping into the stone. Not forced, just invited. A quiet exhale of heat. The elder says nothing. He just watches the wind move the branches the way a poet watches time. You stay like that for a long moment, and then something begins to shift. The stone doesn't grow lighter, but you do. The elder smiles. Sometimes it only takes a breath. Then he tells a fable. There was once a woman, he says, who carried a jug of water over her head every day across many hills to her family. One day, she stumbled, and the jug broke. Furious at herself, she wept beside the cracked pot. But in time, she noticed something. Along her path, flowers had begun to bloom. The water she lost nourished the earth. You let the story sink in. So maybe the cracks in your calm, the leaks in your composure, even the moments when anger slips through, they're not failures. Maybe they're where something beautiful can grow. The elder turns to you, voice like the breeze through grass. What in your life, he asks, have you been carrying too tightly? Fearing the crack, fearing the spill. You don't answer aloud, but your heart answers. And for the first time in a while, you feel something inside you loosening. Just a little, just enough. You place the memory stone back between you, quietly bowing to it. A small act of reverence for what you've begun to release. And as you both rise, you notice your steps are quieter now. Not because the path has changed, but because you're walking it differently. Overhead, the clouds continue to gather. But you're not afraid. After all, rain is only another way the sky speaks. The first drops fall like whispers. You and the elder stand at the edge of the pavilion again, watching as the clouds open just slightly enough to let the rain begin its soft descent. It isn't harsh, not yet. Just a fine drizzle that dapples the stone path and paints dark circles on the wood beneath your feet. The scent of rain on dry earth rises instantly rich and nostalgic. You inhale deeply, and for a moment, everything else slips away. No thoughts of earlier frustrations, no sense of how long the night will last. Only this scent, this moment. The elder steps into the rain sandals, barely making a sound. Come, he says with a smile. Let's visit the bamboo. You follow curious. The path is slick now, glistening like polished obsidian under the lantern light. The rain touches your shoulders gently, like fingers brushing dust from your shirt. It's not cold, just cool enough to remind you that you are here alive, breathing part of something larger. The bamboo grove greets you with a hush. Tall green stalks sway above their leaves, rustling softly in the breeze. You walk slowly into their shelter, where the rain filters through in quiet silver threads. This, the elder says, is one of our oldest teachers. He places his hand on one slender bamboo stalk. It bends slightly beneath his touch, not resisting, just swaying. Bamboo doesn't fight the wind. It yields. It bows. And yet, it does not break. You watch the bamboo bend and rise over and over, never snapping, always returning. The elder continues. So many think strength is stiff like stone, but stone cracks under pressure. Bamboo sings with the storm. A wind picks up, swaying the grove. You listen to the gentle creak of stalks brushing one another. It's almost musical, a soft symphony of surrender. Do you remember, he says, when you first learned to ride a bicycle? You nod faintly. I fell. A lot, he chuckles. Yes. And each time you tightened, you tensed, you braced for the fall. But then one day, your body found its own rhythm, its own balance, not by resisting, but by flowing. You let those words hang in the air, mingling with the rain. Then he tells a story. There was a warrior. Once he begins known for his skill with the sword. Unbeatable, swift, precise. But one day, in a deep forest, he came upon a monk sitting beneath a tree. The monk did not move, even as the warrior approached, with blade drawn. Why do you not flee? The warrior asked. The monk opened his eyes and said, because you are like fire, and fire cannot harm the river. The warrior laughed, then struck. But the monk stepped aside, not out of fear, but flow. The sword passed, but the monk remained unharmed, undisturbed, like wind passing over still water. You find yourself smiling. It's a story that's not really about swords at all. And then the elder adds, we all carry blades inside. Sharp thoughts, sharp tongues. But what if instead of sharpening them, we softened our ground? You reach out and place your hand on a bamboo stalk. It bends under your fingers, then straightens again. Resilient, alive. The elder looks at you. When anger arises, what do you do? Tighten or yield? You don't have to answer. Your breath does it for you longer, now softer. He continues. The Buddha said, just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so, the wise are not affected by praise or blame. But I say, perhaps it is not about being solid like a rock, but supple like bamboo. A leaf lands on your shoulder, delicate and trembling. You leave it there. Let yourself sway, he says. Let the wind move you. but not uproot you. And you realize your anger, when it came earlier, was rigid. A tightness, a refusal to move. But now, under the bamboo, in the hush of rain, you begin to see a different kind of strength. One that bends without apology. One that bows and rises again. The elder sits on a moss-covered stone and motions for you to join him. You do the earth damp beneath you, the bamboo whispering overhead. I used to think, he says, that peace meant never feeling strong emotions. But then I realized that's not peace. That's avoidance. True peace is the ability to stay open even when the wind howls. You watch a raindrop trace its way down a green stalk, then fall quiet as a breath to the ground. He looks at you. So I ask, can you bend and still be yourself? The question sits in you like a seed. You remember moments when you dug your heels in, when you refused to shift, even when it hurt more to stay rigid. You remember the exhaustion of pretending to be fine while clenching inside. And now, sitting here with rain on your sleeves and a leaf on your shoulder, you feel something different. A kind of peace that's not about being untouched, but unshaken. Not because the storm doesn't come, but because you're learning to dance with it. You rise slowly, bow once to the bamboo, and begin walking back toward the garden. The rain has lessened now, the earth quieting. Behind you, the bamboo still sings its soft song, and within you, something has begun to sway. The rain has passed, like a traveling monk, silent, brief, and full of quiet purpose. Now, the night feels washed clean. The stones beneath your feet gleam under the moon's pale eye, and the scent of damp earth mingles with distant traces of incense and pine. The garden is still, as if the rain has hushed even the crickets for a while. The elder guides you to the sand garden, a wide raked expanse of pale gravel and stone lanterns. Its patterns meticulous and sweeping like ocean waves drawn in silence. You pause at the edge, not wanting to disturb its harmony, but you notice something. Footprints, not yours, not the elders. Someone passed through here recently, leaving a clear path right through the center, cutting across the curves of the raked sand, breaking its careful stillness. You hesitate. The elder says nothing at first. He merely steps forward, picks up the wooden rake leaning against a nearby post, and offers it to you. You take it, and then slowly, you begin to smooth over the footprints. The rake whispers across the gravel, back and forth. Soft lines, circular motions, swirls that expand like breath exhaled into water. You don't speak, and neither does he. After a while, you ask quietly, "Why do we erase the footprints?" The elder tilts his head. "Do we erase them? or do we make space for something new? You consider that as you rake. The path you're smoothing begins to disappear, but not entirely. It lingers faintly in the deeper layers, just beneath the surface. There's a tale the elder says about a gardener who spent her whole life tending a single patch of earth. Every day, she cleared the weeds, pruned the bushes, and raked the stones. One day, a stranger walked across her garden without noticing her work. The gardener sighed, but then she smiled. "Perhaps," she said, "it's not for them to notice. It's for me to begin again." You let that story settle as you finish the last pass of the rake. The garden is quiet again, but something inside you is not quite the same. You look at the blank sand and feel a strange affection, not for its perfection, but for the fact that it welcomed another's carelessness and still returned to peace. I used to think you say softly that once something was ruined, it stayed ruined. The elder gives a gentle chuckle. And now you look around the smoothed gravel, the lingering scent of rain, the feeling in your hands from holding the rake. Now I think maybe nothing is ever ruined, just rearranged. He nods. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. You kneel beside the edge of the garden, pressing your palm to the cool sand. How many things, the elder asked gently, have you tried to preserve perfectly, only to suffer more when they were touched? You think of the times you tried to keep your emotions pristine, your image, your relationships, your plans. How easily things could feel ruined when they didn't go how you imagined. But now in this garden of shifting sands, you begin to wonder, is letting go truly a loss? Or is it a return? You rise slowly and hand the rake back to the elder. What if we let go, not to give up, but to begin again? He bows his head in quiet agreement. Each breath is a beginning. You take a slow one now, deep and soft, in and out. You notice how your body moves with the breath, like the sand beneath the rake. Fluid, receptive, not frozen in place. The moon has risen higher now, its light casting soft silver across the garden. In that glow, the raked lines shimmer faintly like ripples on a still lake. You walk once more through the stone path that borders the garden, careful not to step where you've just raked. The elder follows beside you, silent as your own shadow. He stops beside a mossy stone and runs his hand over its surface. Even this stone, he says, was once something sevder, something that changed shape over time. You sit beside the stone fingers, tracing the grooves time has left in it. Then the elder tells you another story. There was once a monk who became obsessed with keeping the temple perfectly clean. He swept, constantly polished, endlessly dusted before any dust appeared. But the temple master said, "You are sweeping the floor, but not your mind." So one day, the monk left a single leaf on the path. Every morning, he would place a fresh one there, not to dirty the temple, but to remind himself perfection is not the point. Presence is. You let that image sink in a single leaf deliberately placed. You look back at the garden behind you. It's smooth again. But you know someone else will walk through it eventually. A bird, a fellow monk, a child chasing a dragonfly, and when they do, you think you'll smile, because now you understand peace is not in keeping things untouched. It's in being willing to touch them again. With love, you rise once more, brushing sand from your robe. The wind carries a faint laugh from somewhere else in the monastery. Maybe someone's telling a joke. Maybe someone remembered something sweet. And somehow, that laugh feels like a prayer. You turn to the elder. "I think I'm beginning to see it," you say. He raises a brow. "See what?" You smile just a little. That impermanence is not the enemy. "No," he says. "It is the teacher." Together, you walk away from the sand garden, side by side. The moon overhead, the breeze around you, the footprints now gone, but the lesson still underfoot. And within you, something bows, not to loss, but to the beauty of always beginning again. The candlelight flickers against the shoji walls, casting long, gentle shadows that dance with your breath. You are indoors again, seated in the meditation hall, where silence is not absence, but presence, dense and sacred. The space smells of warm cedar and extinguished incense, and every creak of the wooden floor beneath your knees feels like part of a symphony composed by time. You hold a candle in front of you, not too close, just near enough to feel its gentle warmth. The flame sways a little, shaped by the quiet currents of air that drift through the room. You stare at it, soft-eyed, watching its tender dance. Beside you, the elder speaks quietly. "What do you see?" You take your time. "A flame. A small one." He nods. "Yes." "And does it burn you?" "No. And yet it has the power to." You think about that. The flame is soft, inviting. It doesn't lunge at you. It simply is. It shines because that's what it does. And in the right place, under the right attention, it warms. It gives light, but you know it could scorch if left untended. He leans in just slightly. Anger is like that too. You glance at the candle again. Then he says, "And just as every flame casts a shadow, so too does every emotion bring forth something hidden." You nod slowly. It makes sense now. The light of your awareness brings the darkness with it, not as something to fear, but something to see. He continues, "The Buddha once said, 'As a flame is not troubled by the wind, So the wise are not moved by praise or blame. But what is this wisdom, if not simply seeing both light and shadow, and holding neither too tightly? The candle flickers again, and your gaze shifts to the shadows it creates. The gentle outline of your own form on the wall. A soft trembling of the dark. You cannot have one without the other. The elder says, the brighter the light, the sharper the shadow. But neither is the truth. The truth lies in what sees them both. Your heart feels unusually still, like a bowl of water, finally undisturbed. He tells another story. There was once a monk who was afraid of his own anger. Every time it arose, he would retreat into the forest, ashamed. He built a hut far away and vowed never to return until he had rid himself of it. Years passed, but one day, a child wandered into the woods, lost and crying. The monk took the child and fed him, gave him shelter. The child asked, "Why do you live alone out here?" The monk answered, "Because I carry a dangerous flame." The child laughed and said, "But I only saw your fire when you made the soup." And in that moment, the monk understood anger can be dangerous. Yes, but it can also be warmth if used with care. You smile faintly. The idea is so simple, and yet it shifts something inside you. How many times have you tried to extinguish your flame, or feared it, suppressed it, only for it to smolder quietly, growing stronger in the dark? What if it didn't need to be hidden? What if it needed to be honored? You gaze again at the candle, and now you see it differently. Not just a light in the darkness, but a teacher in its own right. "I've always feared my anger," you whisper. "Thought it meant I was failing." The elder breathes slowly. "It only means you are alive. The flame is not the failure. Misuse is. But avoidance, that is simply blindness." You sit with that. Then he picks up a second candle and places it beside yours. The two flames flicker, then lean toward one another slightly, as if bowing. He says, "What happens when two flames meet?" You answer, "They share the same fire." "And do they burn each other?" You smile. "No. They become one." He nods. "So it is with emotion. Yours, mine, anger, joy, fear, tenderness. None are enemies. All are fuel. All are part of the sacred fire of this human life. He rises, and so do you. He leads you out of the meditation hall and back into the cool night, where the moon has now climbed higher, casting its own soft light across the temple grounds. The candle in your hands glows against the darkness, and then something unexpected. The elder blows out his candle. You glance at him surprised. He simply says, "Watch." And as the smoke curls upward from his wick, he adds, "Even the flame one day lets go. You look down at yours. You're not ready to blow it out. Not yet. But you understand now that one day you will. And when you do, it won't be because you lost it. It will be because you've carried its warmth long enough. You walk together back toward the garden, your single flame lighting the way. And as you walk, you wonder, is shadow truly the opposite of light, or simply its companion? You pass the bamboo once more, now still in the windless hush, and your shadow follows softly behind you, not as something separate, but something seen. The wind carries a hush through the valley as you reach a quiet courtyard where a great bronze bell stands beneath a wooden roof, resting in shadow. Its surface is aged with time, yet smooth from centuries of reverent touches. Palms pressed gently, fingertips trailing along its rim, as if seeking to hear what it has not yet rung. The elder stops beside it and folds his hands behind his back. This bell, he says, has never been rung. You look at him, uncertain if you misheard. Never. He nods. Not once. It was gifted long ago by a wandering craftsman who believed in silence more than sound. You step closer to the bell. It's beautiful, weathered, but proud. The carvings around its base seem almost to whisper with memory. Why was it made, then, you ask? The elder's voice is soft. To teach restraint. A pause. Then, there's a story, of course. He walks slowly around the bell, speaking as he moves. The craftsman who made it was once a blacksmith for a warlord. He forged blades sharp, swift, unforgiving. But the more he shaped steel, the more hollow he felt, until one day he left it all behind. He wandered into the mountains and learned from monks. One winter, he crafted this bell, not for battle, not for celebration, but to remind himself of the sound he chose not to make. You run your fingers along its cool surface. The silence hums in your ears. Sometimes the elder says the greatest strength is not to strike, not to shout, but to wait. You think of your own voice, how often it has rushed out in anger or defense, how it's tried to be heard before it tried to listen. And now you wonder, what would your silence say if you gave it space to speak? The elder sits on the edge of the courtyard and motions for you to join him. You do, your back warmed by the lanterns nearby. Do you know what this bell taught the village? He asks. You shake your head. It became a ritual. Each morning, the villagers would gather near it, and instead of ringing the bell, they would place a hand on its side and breathe. That was all. One breath shared in silence. And that silence echoed louder than any bell. You can almost see it. Dozens of villagers' hands pressed gently to metal, their breath rising into dawn, a shared hush more powerful than sound. The elder leans back. It takes courage to withhold a reaction, especially when anger knocks at the door with fire and fury. But sometimes silence is the answer, not because you have nothing to say, but because you know words won't carry the weight of truth. You look at the bell again. It seems to shimmer faintly in the moonlight, as if its silence has become something sacred, something whole. He adds, "The Buddha said, 'Speak only when your words are more beautiful than silence.'" Most of us were never taught how to pause. We were taught how to win arguments, how to be right, but never how to breathe instead of bite. A breeze stirs, moving through the trees like a sigh, and in that moment, you wonder, what noise within you have you mistaken for truth? What silence have you avoided because it felt like surrender? You glance back at the bell this time with a sense of awe, not because it's loud, but because it could be and chooses not to. The elder reaches into his robe and pulls out a small wooden mallet. He holds it up. "This was given with the bell," he says, "to ring it if the village ever needed its voice." You feel a curious anticipation, but he sets the mallet down gently beside the bell. We never did. And somehow, that choice to keep it silent is more powerful than any sound it might have made. He turns to you. When anger comes, we often ring our own bells too quickly. We strike, shout, send sharp words into the world. But imagine if we paused just long enough to ask, what does this anger truly want to protect? What part of me feels unheard? You sit with that, your hands resting on your knees, your breath steady. You picture the bell inside yourself, the one you ring when hurt, when wronged, when misunderstood. What if you touched it instead? What if you held space for its silence? The elder speaks again this time, like a breeze through reeds. Some pain does not need an answer. It needs presence, a witness. And in that witnessing, it begins to soften on its own. You feel that in your chest now. Not the collapse of emotion, but its unraveling, a loosening, like a knotted rope, gently released. He rises slowly, dusts off his robe. We do not always need to ring the bell. Sometimes it is enough to know that we could. You bow your head to the bell before you leave, not in worship, but in respect for its silence, for its possibility, for the way it holds restraint, like a kind of music you haven't learned to sing yet. As you and the elder walk back toward the inner hall, the wind shifts again, carrying the faint scent of jasmine and memory. The courtyard behind you remains quiet, but the silence rings with meaning, and within you, the echo of a bell, not struck, begins to teach you a new kind of strength. The path narrows as you descend toward the lower garden, where wild grasses sway, and the order of the temple gives way to something more untamed. The stones here are less precise, moss spreads freely. The bamboo gives way to taller trees, their branches forming a loose canopy, through which starlight trickles down in fragments. The elder walks ahead of you, robes rustling like soft wind through leaves. You follow, drawn forward, not by urgency, but by curiosity, by the promise of something unexpected waiting in this more forgotten corner of the monastery. A flicker of movement catches your eye. You pause. There, sitting quite still at the edge of the path, is a fox. Its fur glows faintly in the moonlight, reddish gold, like the embers of a campfire nearly gone. It watches you with eyes that do not blink, as though it knows more than it should. The elder sees it too, and he stops with a knowing smile. "Ah," he says softly, "our little visitor." You glance at him. "Is it dangerous?" He chuckles. "Only to assumptions." The fox does not move. You meet its gaze, and something in you stills. It isn't fear. It's awareness, like being studied by the forest itself. Then, in the most curious moment, the fox lowers its head. A slow, deliberate bow. You blink, and then it turns, disappears into the underbrush. Without a sound, you look to the elder, stunned. He nods. Even wildness knows when to bow. You sit down on a nearby stone heart, beating just a little faster. The moment feels dreamlike, as if the boundary between the sacred and the everyday has thinned. He sits beside you. There's a parable he begins of a fox who lived near a monastery. Every morning, it would watch the monks bow to the rising sun, then to one another. At first, it mocked them. Bowing seemed pointless to a creature that trusted only its instincts. But one winter morning, the fox watched a young monk help an old man walk across an icy bridge, his movements slow and full of care. Something in the fox stirred. That night, for the first time, it bowed not to the monks, not to the sun, but to the stillness it felt in its own body. It bowed because something inside had changed. You look back toward the trees, half hoping to see the fox again. But it's gone. Only the rustle of leaves and the quiet breath of the earth remain. Do you know why that story matters? The elder asks. You shake your head. Because we often think stillness is the absence of motion. But real stillness is reverence. It's the moment you recognize that even your wildest thoughts can kneel, not in defeat, in recognition. You sit with that, letting it ripple through your chest. How often, he says, do we bow only when forced? Only when broken? You don't answer. You're thinking about the times you've yielded, only because life gave you no choice, after heartbreak, after failure, after loss. But what if bowing wasn't about defeat? What if it was about choosing to honor what you don't fully understand? The elder leans back on his palms, gazing up at the stars. The Buddha bowed to the earth after his enlightenment, not because he was lesser than it, but because he was part of it, because he saw it clearly and loved it without needing to control it. A breeze moves through the grass, rustling like a sigh from something ancient. You speak softly. Sometimes I'm afraid that if I bow to what's difficult, it will take over. That if I honor my anger or sadness or fear, they'll become me. He looks at you kind and steady. And yet, have they not already become you? When you resist them so fiercely, you close your eyes. You feel it, that small shift, that gentle truth. How clenching doesn't stop emotion, it embeds it. But bowing even slightly allows it to pass through. He continues. The fox didn't stop being wild. It didn't become tame. It simply recognized something worthy of reverence and responded. You open your eyes again, and the stars seem brighter, closer. He tells you one last part of the tale. Eventually, the fox began to sit near the meditation hall. Not every day, just sometimes. And the monks stopped trying to chase it away. One even left a piece of fruit for it each morning. In time, they said the fox grew old, and when it died, it did so curled beside the wall, still facing east, where the sun would rise. A moment of silence settles between you. Then he asks, "What in you have you refused to bow to?" You think of your anger again, not as a fire to extinguish, but as a visitor, like the fox. Misunderstood, yes. Unpredictable sometimes, but maybe not your enemy. Maybe it just wants to be acknowledged, seen, welcomed, if only for a moment. You whisper, "Maybe I've been trying to tame the wildness instead of listening to it." The elder smiles gently. And what if the wildness is what makes you whole? You rise slowly, brushing dew from your robe. The earth beneath your feet feels more solid now. You can feel the pulse of it, the quiet invitation of it. You bow not deeply just enough, to the ground, to the night, to the fox, wherever it has gone. And within your chest, something bows too, not because it is broken, but because it finally understands. Stillness is not silence. Stillness is respect. The wind has quieted now. The path leading back to the tea house glows faintly beneath the moon, edged with wet grass that glistens like dewdrops strung on invisible threads. You walk without speaking, the elder beside you, in a rhythm of soft, steady footsteps. As you step through the low wooden gate into the quiet warmth of the tea house again, something feels different. Not in the room, but in you. The storm inside is quieter, as if a tide has gone out, leaving behind patterns in the sand that you hadn't noticed before. You sit once more, and this time, the elder offers you a different teacup. It's cracked, a thin, jagged line runs down one side and curves around the base like a pale scar. The crack has been filled with gold. You hesitate. It's broken. No, the elder says gently. It's mended. You hold the cup carefully. The gold glints in the lantern light, and you trace it with your finger, feeling its texture, a fracture, not hidden, but highlighted. He continues, "This is a cup I've kept for many years. One day, it slipped from my hand. I was preparing tea for guests, and I broke it in front of everyone. There was a turbulence, a kind of sorrow. I nearly threw it away. You look up at him, but you didn't." "No," he says, smiling faintly. "Instead, I learned of the practice called kintsugi, the art of golden repair. To honor what was broken, to heal it, not invisibly, but beautifully." You turn the cup in your hands. There is something unspeakably tender about it, as if it carries both grief and grace in the same breath. The elder pours tea into the cup despite the crack, and nothing leaks. "It holds even now," he says. "In some ways, even more than before." You lift the cup to your lips, and the tea is warm, slightly floral. It's the same tea, but somehow it tastes different, as though the cup's story has infused it with another layer of meaning. Then he says quietly, "There is a teaching hidden here." You look at him waiting. "We are taught to chase wholeness, to be perfect, to fix what is cracked so that no one can see. But the truth is our cracks are not failures. They are the places where healing has passed. You think of all the ways you've tried to hide your own fractures, the anger that cracked your calm, the griefs you tucked away behind small smiles, the moments you weren't proud of, shoved into dark corners. What if they could be touched with gold instead?" He adds, "The Buddha said, just as a solid house does not shake in the wind, so the wise remain undisturbed." But I think the wise are not undisturbed because they've never cracked, but because they've mended. You sip again, holding the warmth near your chest. "Do you still love it?" you ask gently, running your thumb along the gold seam. "More than before," he says without hesitation. You smile, but it's a quiet one, soft, reflective. Then he tells you a story. There was a potter who once made a cup for a great general. It was flawless, strong, symmetrical. But the general died in battle, and the cup passed down to his son, who kept it in a drawer. Years later, it fell and broke. The potter, now old, was asked to fix it. But instead of restoring it exactly, he painted its cracks with gold. When asked why, he said, so the son would remember that even broken things can still be worthy of tea. You breathe that in, feeling something unspoken inside you begin to ease. So many of us, the elder says, walk around trying to be unbroken. But what if your brokenness is what allows light to enter? What if the crack is the doorway? The fire in the lantern pops softly, and outside a single bird chirps once before returning to sleep. You speak slowly. I used to believe that if people saw my cracks, they would see weakness. And now you run your hand along the cup one more time. Now I wonder if they'd see me more clearly. The elder nods. There is no shame in what has been healed, only wisdom. You sit for a while in silence, sipping tea from the cup that once was broken, now made whole again in a new way. You think of your own life, what has been cracked, what you've tried to hide, what you're only now learning to hold with gentleness. And a thought rises soft and sincere. What if beauty doesn't come from being untouched, but from being touched by life and still choosing to shine? You glance once more at the gold seam. It doesn't shout. It just glows quietly in the light, like truth, like forgiveness, like a smile that comes after the tears have dried. And as you place the cup gently back on the tray, you bow your head, not to the tea, but to the you that is beginning to feel whole again. Not because nothing was ever broken, but because you've begun to love the parts that were. The garden is quieter now, as if the night has grown deeper, more reflective. Even the breeze has softened into occasional sighs, and the trees no longer sway, they listen. You and the elder walk slowly the path beneath your feet, damp with the last memory of rain. A low stone lantern flickers ahead, guiding your steps as the elder veers toward the lotus pond nestled in the northern corner of the monastery grounds. The moon reflects in the water like a pale coin shimmering whole, but not entirely still. Ripples spread from somewhere beneath the surface. You step closer and notice something floating near the edge of the pond. A lotus leaf, perfectly round, vibrant green. And resting atop it is something curious. A small folded scrap of parchment, softened by moisture, but still holding its shape. The elder kneels, reaches for it with care, and offers it to you. You take it, fingers brushing the damp paper. It's handwritten in delicate strokes, elegant yet childlike in its simplicity. The message reads, "Who is angry when no one is there?" You look at the elder, puzzled. What does it mean? He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he smiles as he sits by the pond and gestures for you to join him. You sit the damp earth soft beneath you. The question now resting quietly in your lap, like a koan, one of those strange riddles used in Zen practice, not to solve with logic, but to dissolve with insight. He speaks gently. In the teachings, a koan is not meant to be answered. It is meant to sit with you, like tea, cooling in the cup. The more you stare at it, the more it stares back. You gaze at the pond. The lotus leaves bob gently with the movement of the water, and you wonder Who left the note? Was it the elder? Another monk? A child from the nearby village? Or maybe... It doesn't matter. What does it mean, you ask, again more softly. The elder picks up a fallen lotus petal and lets it drift into the pond. Who is angry when no one is there? He echoes. Who gets upset when the moment has already passed? You feel the truth flicker. Just beyond reach, he continues. There was once a novice monk who grew angry at a fellow student during meditation. The student had fallen asleep and begun to snore, disrupting the silence. The novice sat with clenched fists and burning thoughts, unable to focus. But after the session, he discovered the student had left the hall much earlier than he'd realized. The snoring had stopped long before his anger did. You smile faintly. The elder raises an eyebrow. So who was he really angry at? Not the student, you say. He nods. Perhaps anger is not always directed outward. Sometimes, it's just the echo of our own unmet expectations. The question repeats itself inside you, like a soft bell. Who is angry when no one is there? You think of the arguments you've had in your mind long after the person was gone. The imaginary replies you rehearsed. The invisible courtrooms where you played both prosecutor and defense, all of it unfolding within you alone. You murmur maybe the anger isn't even about the other person. The elder doesn't confirm or deny. He just lets the silence hold space for your reflection. You look at the folded parchment again. Its ink has begun to bleed slightly, merging the letters into the paper. And yet the question remains. The moon reflects again in the water. But now, as a breeze passes, its image trembles. Look at the moon, the elder says. Do you see how its reflection ripples? You nod. Is the moon disturbed? You think about it. No. Just the water. He smiles. Exactly. The moon remains whole, untouched, even when its reflection dances. You understand. Your anger, your hurt, your fear, they are ripples. They move, they disturb, they pass. But underneath it all, something in you, like the moon, is still whole. What if the elder says softly, you are not the ripple, but the sky that holds it? You stare at the water, your thoughts quieting into something simpler, more spacious. And then he adds, the Buddha taught there is no self in anger, no permanent owner of pain, only passing weather in an open sky. You close your eyes. The question is no longer something to solve. It's something to let settle, like dust on a windowsill. Who is angry when no one is there? You open your eyes to the night. A frog croaks nearby. A breeze lifts the edge of the parchment and carries it toward the pond. You don't reach for it. You let it go. It lands gently on the surface of the water, drifting, then slowly sinking beneath the lilies. Gone, but not lost, just transformed. The elder stands. Come, he says. There's more night ahead. you rise with him. And as you walk back through the trees, the question follows you like a soft echo, but it no longer demands an answer. It simply walks beside you, quietly smiling. And as your footsteps blend once more with the earth, you wonder, is emptiness really empty? Or is it simply full of things we've yet to understand? The path takes you uphill, now, winding gently beneath low lanterns and branches that arch overhead like cupped hands. The elder walks ahead, robes brushing softly against dew-wet grass, and you follow in silence, your mind still carrying the koan like a stone in your sleeve, present but not burdensome. Soon you arrive at the temple's upper pond, where preparations have begun for the annual lantern floating ceremony. A cluster of small wooden rafts, each supporting a rice paper lantern, rests on the water's edge. The lanterns are unlit for now, but even in the moonlight, their pale forms glow softly, like folded prayers, waiting for breath. The elder gestures toward them. Tonight, he says, we let go. You kneel with him, near the water. A quiet hum of activity surrounds you novices, lighting wicks, monks placing lotus petals inside each raft. But there are no instructions, no hurrying. Every movement seems to flow like part of a wider breath. The elder hands you a small lantern. Its paper sides are thin, delicate, so thin you can see the flickering candle inside before it's even lit. He offers you a brush and a small bowl of ink. You write one word, he says. A word for something you are ready to release. You stare at the blank paper and feel a hesitation. Just one word. You sit with it. So many options. So many things to name. Old grudges, worries, regrets, unmet expectations, all jostling gently like passengers at a quiet train station. Eventually, your hand moves. You write, not neatly, not poetically, just truthfully. You blow lightly on the ink to dry it. Then the elder lights your candle with his own, the flame jumping quietly between you. And together, you step to the edge of the water. The elder places his lantern down gently and lets it go. It floats away without sound, the light within it growing softer, smaller as it drifts. You follow. Your hands lower the raft into the pond, and the lantern begins to move, pulled by the tiniest currents you didn't even see before. A small light in a vast mirror. Around you, more lanterns begin to float one by one, carried slowly into the center of the pond, where they gather like distant stars. You sit back, watching them drift. The elder speaks in a voice just above the lapping of water. Letting go is not forgetting. It's not erasing. It's honoring the moment by allowing it to pass. You watch your lantern grow smaller. It's both beautiful and sad, and yet not painful. He continues, "The Buddha said, you only lose what you cling to. So the letting go is not the loss, it's the freedom," you whisper. "But why does it feel like loss?" He nods gently. "Because we confuse attachment with love. But true love, true peace, it does not require possession. It simply holds and then releases, like the hand opening to let a bird fly." Your eyes drift across the pond. Some lanterns catch on reeds. Some spin lazily in circles. Some race ahead. But all of them carry something someone once held tightly. You remember something else then, a story the elder once told, maybe days ago, maybe just earlier tonight. It returns like a leaf, floating back into view. There was once a traveler, you say, who crossed a river on a raft. When he reached the other side, he lifted the raft onto his back and kept walking, refusing to leave it behind, even though there was no more river. The elder smiles. "Yes, we are so good at carrying, less skilled at setting down." You sit in silence for a while, the lanterns drifting farther. Now, their flames like memories growing faint. Then he says something soft. "Do you remember the anger you carried earlier?" You nod. "It's still there somewhere, but it's different now. Not as sharp, more like mist." What if he says that anger was never meant to be held forever? What if it was only meant to be seen, learned from, and then released? You watch your lantern again. It flickers, then steadies. And you realize something. It's still burning. You didn't extinguish it. You didn't throw it away. You simply let it go. "It's strange," you say. "I thought I had to fight anger. But now I see I just needed to let it float a little." The elder smiles, not with pride, but with presence. Around you, the pond has become a constellation. Each lantern holds a story, a sorrow, a prayer, and none of them are sinking. Sometimes, he says, our pain just wants a boat, not a solution. You close your eyes. A breeze brushes your cheek, and for a moment you feel deeply held, not by another person, but by the night itself, by the water, by this gentle ritual of release. You whisper a final question to yourself, more felt than spoken. What am I still trying to carry? That was meant to drift, and without needing an answer, you watch another lantern slip away, flickering, floating, free. You stay by the water's edge long after most lanterns have drifted out of sight. The pond, now scattered with tiny islands of light, feels like a sky turned upside down, stars that chose to rest in water rather than hang alone in the firmament. Some flicker softly, some burn strong, but all are moving, always moving. You rise slowly, your body warmed from sitting, your mind not heavy, but full, like a bowl that holds only what's needed. The elder waits for you at the path's beginning. No hurry in his posture, no expectation. Just the soft patience of someone who knows that moments like lanterns, drift in their own time. You walk together again, this time in silence. But it's a silence thick with meaning. A silence that hums like a low bell. The trail curves through a narrow grove of stones. And it's there you feel something under your foot. You pause, glance down. A pebble, not just any pebble. This one is round, unusually smooth, with a tiny fracture, like a smile across one edge. You pick it up. It fits in your palm, like it was made for you. The elder turns to look at you and sees the stone in your hand. He chuckles softly. Ah, the laughing pebble. You raise an eyebrow. He nods and sits on a nearby flat stone, gesturing for you to do the same. There's a parable. He begins about a pebble who lay for years on a well-walked path. Every day, travelers came and went, monks, animals, children, and most of them kicked the pebble aside without a second thought. The pebble would tumble into the grass or down into the ditch, and every time it would roll back to the path, determined to stay in the center. You run your thumb over your own pebble's cool surface. One day, the elder continues. A child kicked the pebble a little harder than usual, and it landed far off the trail. The pebble sat alone for days, and in its solitude, it began to laugh, not bitterly, but softly. The kind of laugh that comes from finally understanding something. You look up. What did it understand? That it wasn't being kicked out. He says so much as being returned to stillness. You pause. That one sinks deep. The elder smiles. The pebble had spent so long trying to belong, trying to be part of everyone's story, that it forgot it had its own. The breeze shifts, and the trees above murmur in quiet agreement. You think of the times you've been knocked sideways, emotionally, spiritually. Times when anger rose because you felt overlooked, stepped on, misunderstood. But maybe, just maybe, those moments weren't punishment. Maybe they were invitations. The elder holds out his hand. You place the pebble in it. He lifts it to his ear. Can you hear it? You grin. Hear what? The laugh, he whispers. You both chuckle now, not loudly, just enough. He sets the pebble on the stone between you. In Buddhist teaching, we often speak of equanimity, not indifference, not passivity, but the balance of a heart that sees all things without judgment. He taps the pebble lightly. The laughing pebble reminds us of this harm is not always hate, and not all pain is personal. You nod slowly, feeling that truth stretch its roots through you. He continues. Someone's sharp words, a passing insult, a misunderstanding. We take them as arrows, but often they are pebbles, small, impersonal, kicked from someone else's discomfort. You whisper more to yourself than to him. So why do we still bruise? He looks at you kindly. Because we are tender. And that's not a flaw. That's the price of being human. He picks up the pebble again and hands it back to you. "You'll carry this one now," he says, "not to protect yourself, but to remember the laugh." You place it in your robe's pocket and feel its gentle weight settle against your side. He stands and begins to walk. You follow. The trees thin, and the moon returns overhead in full silver and clear. The night feels wide again. Then he says, "The Buddha taught, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law." But I would add, sometimes what begins as hatred is only confusion, and what we need most is not to retaliate, but to smile, softly, kindly, like the pebble. You both stop near a stream where water moves over smooth stones, the sound like laughter whispered into the dark. The elder crouches, picks up another pebble, holds it up to the moonlight, then tosses it into the stream. Plunk, a ripple, then stillness. "Let the moment move through you," he says, "the way water moves around stone." You listen to the stream, to your breath, to the sound of the world not demanding anything from you. And you ask yourself, not with urgency, but with wonder, when was the last time I laughed? Not to dismiss pain, but to soften it. You breathe that question in, and it feels like the first real exhale in hours. The elder touches your shoulder gently. Time to move on. The pebble rests against your side. Now, not heavy, not forgotten, just quietly smiling. The stream follows you now, winding beside the trail, like a companion who doesn't speak, but never stops offering presence. Its voice, soft, gurgling, melodic, blends with the faint rustle of tree leaves and the occasional, distant creak of temple wood settling into the hush of night. You walk slowly, your footsteps in time with the flow of water, the pebble still tucked safely in your robe. The elder guides you toward a clearing where the trees fall away into a broad overlook. And there, rising in the distance like a shadow draped in moonlight, stands the mountain. It is massive, still, ancient. You sit on a flat stone at the edge of the overlook. The elder remains standing for a moment longer, gazing out at the silent peaks that he says is where the monastery draws its silence from. You follow his gaze. The mountain doesn't move. It doesn't glow or speak or shimmer, but it commands attention by doing none of those things. It just is, you say softly. He smiles and finally sits beside you. And yet, it has seen everything. Storms, sunrises, pilgrims, wars, rebirth. Still, it sits. You let that sink in. The mountain does not react. It doesn't applaud beauty or rage at suffering. It watches. It holds. It allows. He continues. There's a teaching. The monks whisper to one another, "Be like the mountain." not because the mountain is cold, but because it's spacious. You look at him, brow gently furrowed. Spacious, he nods. Room for everything. Room for thunder and bird song, for weeping winds and laughing monks. It doesn't choose what belongs. It receives it all and remains itself. You close your eyes. You feel the toe of the metaphor, the part of you that longs for that kind of presence. Not the numbness of denial, but the unshakable calm of something rooted deeply. There's a story the elder says, his voice now quieter than the stream, about a monk who climbed the mountain every day to sit at its summit. One day, a traveler asked him, "What do you learn from sitting up there so often?" And the monk replied, "Nothing. The mountain does not teach. It reminds me who I was before I forgot." You smile, eyes still closed. You can almost feel the mountain in your breath. Solid, patient, present. And then the elder adds, "When anger comes, we usually become the storm. We lash, we flood. But what if we let ourselves be the mountain instead? Let the storm pass through us, over us, without becoming it." You open your eyes again. The peaks remain exactly as they were, unmoved, unswayed. You ask, but isn't that indifference? To just watch everything without reacting? He shakes his head gently. Indifference is turning away. Equanimity is turning toward with stillness. He plucks a blade of grass and holds it between his fingers. The Buddha said, "The mind is difficult to control, swift, and alighting wherever it pleases. Let the wise person guard it well, for a well-guarded mind brings happiness." But the guarding is not force, it's presence. You watch the grass ripple as he breathes. The movement is so small, yet even that the mountain allows. You think back to all the times you've reacted too quickly, to words, to stress, to disappointment, like lightning striking a tree without even pausing to see if the tree was already broken. What if instead of reacting, you could simply hold space? What would it mean, the elder asks, to be so grounded in your own presence that nothing could pull you away from yourself? You don't answer, not because you're unsure, but because the question is enough. The moon rises higher, brushing silver across the elder's shoulder. And for a moment, you see him differently. Not as a teacher or a figure of wisdom, but as someone who has weathered his own storms, perhaps many times, and chosen not to become them. You glance at the mountain again. It offers no counsel, no sermons, and yet you understand more than if it had spoken. The elder leans back on his elbows, gazing up at the stars. "I used to climb it every full moon," he says. "Not to reach the top, just to remember how small I am and how enough that smallness can be." You whisper, "Have you ever shouted at it?" He laughs, a low, kind sound. Of course. I've shouted, cried, even begged. The mountain didn't answer, but it didn't leave either. And that, you realize, is the teaching. To be that unmoved, not as a way of escaping feeling, but as a way of embracing it all, without losing yourself. You sit with that image, the mountain and the storm, the mountain and the moon, the mountain and you. You wonder, what in me is like the mountain? What in me endures even when the winds rise? A breeze brushes your face, and the silence between you grows thick again, not with absence, but with presence. The elder stands. "Come," he says. "We've watched long enough." You rise slowly, casting one last glance at the sleeping mountain. It does not bow, but you do, not to worship, to honor, to thank the part of yourself that is learning, little by little, to remain. And as you turn to walk back, you feel taller, not in pride, but in steadiness, like something inside you just remembered its roots. The path curves again, narrowing between low stone walls covered in moss. You walk in silence, and in that silence, something inside you begins to echo. A thought, a memory, a stillness, and then leaves falling. You step into a courtyard littered with them red, gold, and brown, like small brush strokes scattered by a sleepy artist. The ground is almost entirely covered. In the center stands a monk's broom, simple handmade, resting against a stone bench, as if waiting for someone to notice it. The elder doesn't speak. He walks over, lifts the broom with both hands, and begins to sweep. You stand watching for a moment, unsure if you're meant to help. Then he pauses, smiles, and nods to the other broom leaning nearby. You pick it up. The bristles make a soft sound as they brush against the stone. Shh, 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 like wind in a whisper. You work slowly, gathering leaves into soft piles. The breeze scatters them again, almost immediately. You pause. The elder watches his own tidy little pile become undone by the wind. He simply bows to it and begins sweeping again. You look at him, eyebrows raised. "Isn't it pointless?" He chuckles. "Yes, perfectly," and continues sweeping. You glance down at your own pile, now half blown across the courtyard, and ask, "Then why sweep at all?" He stops, broom resting across his knees. A student once asked the Buddha, "What is the point of sweeping the path if the wind will undo it?" And the Buddha replied, "I do not sweep to keep it clean. I sweep to remember that nothing stays." You breathe that in. A leaf flutters past your face like a slow exhale. The elder continues. We try to hold our lives in order. Emotions, relationships, plans, all carefully raked. But the wind doesn't care. It comes anyway. And what we learn is not how to stop the wind, but how to keep sweeping. You nod, slowly. Then he adds, Anger is often the wind, sudden, messy, uninvited. But what if instead of resisting it, we simply acknowledged it and kept sweeping? You return to the motion. Shh, shh, shh. Rhythmic, steady. It becomes a kind of meditation. The way your hands and arms move, the way your breath matches the gentle brushing of the leaves. Another gust of wind lifts a pile and scatters it across your freshly cleared space. You close your eyes and laugh, just a small one, like a sigh disguised as a chuckle. The elder grins. Ah, there it is. You look at him. What? The moment of surrender. When the work no longer demands results, only presence. You let your broom fall still. The leaves continue to dance. You let them. Then he tells a story. There was once a monk who tried to sweep every morning before sunrise. But no matter how early he rose, more leaves would fall. He began to grow angry at the trees, the wind, even himself. Until one day, he watched an old nun sweep, slowly smiling the entire time. "Why are you smiling?" he asked. "The leaves never stop falling." She looked at him and said, "Exactly. They are teaching me how to stop clinging to the clean path." You gaze at the courtyard, now messier than when you arrived, and yet you feel no frustration, only tenderness. I think you whisper, "I've been trying to sweep away feelings I don't like. Pretend they aren't there. Get rid of them." The elder nods. "And has the wind ever asked your permission before it blew?" You grin. "No." So then he says, gently, "Perhaps your task is not to silence the wind, but to hear it clearly, to know its sound, its season, to sweep when you can. And when the wind blows, let it blow." A leaf lands on your shoulder. You leave it there. He adds, "The Buddha said, like a skilled gardener removes weeds by hand, so must we remove anger with awareness. But awareness is not violence. It is attention, loving attention. You sweep one final time, just a small area, and let it be. The courtyard is not tidy, but it's beautiful, alive. You place the broom gently against the bench again and sit beside it, listening to the wind rustle through the trees. The elder joins you. Neither of you speak until, finally, he whispers, "What are you still trying to tidy that was never meant to stay neat?" The question falls like a leaf into your thoughts. No answer, just awareness. You realize maybe peace isn't about a raked path. Maybe it's about dancing with the wind. You sit with that. You breathe with it, and the courtyard rustles again, as if in agreement. The air shifts once more, not colder, just quieter. The courtyard fades behind you as you follow the elder down a winding path flanked by flickering lanterns. Your steps are slower now, not from fatigue, but from softness, like your body has learned a new kind of listening. The trees part, and there it is, the altar, simple, wooden, open to the night. Its surfaces are bare, save for a bowl of incense, ash, a faded cushion, and a small stone statue of the Buddha, seated in quiet repose, hands resting in his lap, eyes nearly closed, but not quite. But tonight, something else is there. A cat. It's perched upon the altar, cushion coiled in a perfect spiral, breathing slowly. Its fur is white, with patches of gray, and one ear twitches as it dreams. It doesn't flinch when you approach. It doesn't stir when the elder kneels just beside it. You kneel too. The cat doesn't open its eyes, but somehow you know it sees everything. The elder leans in slightly, whispering, as though not to wake the sleeping feline. This one has been meditating longer than I have. You smile. Does it belong to the temple? He shakes his head. No one belongs to anyone here, but we welcome what comes. The cat breathes in, breathes out, just once, just deeply enough to remind you how rarely we truly pay attention to a single breath. The elder closes his eyes, palms resting upward on his thighs. You follow, and for a while, there is nothing, just breath, yours, the elder's, the cat's, 3 lives sitting still, no one leading, no one striving, just being. You begin to feel the strange intimacy of shared stillness. No talking, no planning, no reacting. The cat stretches slightly, front paws long back, arched, and settles again, as if to say, there. That's better. Then the elder speaks softly. There's a story we tell here about a master who asked his students to describe enlightenment in a single word. They said all the usual things: emptiness, clarity, compassion. But the cat was sleeping on the windowsill, and one student pointed to it and said, "That." The master nodded. "Yes, that is enough." You glance at the cat, still breathing, still not moved by praise or definition. Sometimes the elder says the greatest wisdom is not knowing, it's not needing to. You let your breath soften. Inhale, exhale. The cat sighs, as if to say, finally you're getting it. The elder adds, the Buddha once said, just as a bee gathers nectar without harming the flower, so should the wise live in this world. This cat, she harms nothing. She asks for nothing. Yet look how fully she lives. You smile, watching the slow rise and fall of the cat's body. Do you think she's meditating? The elder shrugs. Or maybe she's just being. No effort, no practice, just presence. You think about your own efforts. You're striving to understand anger, to quiet it, to fix it. And now, sitting beside this cat, you realize maybe peace was never something to earn. Maybe it was always this simple, this quiet, This soft, the elder speaks again. We spend so much time trying to become something. But the cat is not becoming. She is, you whisper. So maybe I don't need to become peaceful. Maybe I just need to stop resisting what I already am. He smiles. Now you're listening. The wind moves gently across the clearing. The lanterns sway. The statue seems to smile a little more than before. The cat yawns, stretches again, and then gracefully unbothered steps off the altar and walks across the wooden planks toward the tall grass. She disappears without looking back. The altar is empty now, but it doesn't feel like anything is missing. The elder rises slowly, brushing his hands against his robes. You stand too lighter somehow. As you walk away, you glance back one last time. The cushion where the cat had slept is still warm in the moonlight, still holding the shape of her stillness. And you think stillness leaves a trace even after it's gone. The elder says quietly, "What if enlightenment isn't a place to reach, but a way to sit even in the chaos?" You don't answer. You just walk beside him, each step softer than the last. The cat is gone, but you carry her now, not in memory, but in breath, in the way your body no longer rushes, in the way your thoughts no longer chase, in the space between thoughts, between sounds, between steps. She curls up again and sleeps. The path fades into mist now, not heavy just enough to blur the edges of the trees and soften the night into a dream. The air feels damp against your cheeks, and your robe grows cool at the edges. Ahead, the elder's form becomes a silhouette, gentle, deliberate, as he moves across a small wooden bridge suspended over a stream. You follow. The bridge creaks faintly beneath your feet. It's narrow and old, with simple rails made from rope and bamboo. And the stream below moves slowly, carrying fallen leaves in little whirlpools. You pause halfway across, glancing down. The water reflects the moon, but barely. Its face breaks and reforms with every ripple. The elder stops, turns back toward you, and smiles. Fog always makes the path seem uncertain, he says, but it does not mean the path is false. You catch your breath in the mist and look around. Everything is familiar, but changed, faded, ghost-like. He walks to the other side, where the bridge vanishes again into the forest. You hesitate, and he says, "There is a teaching in this." You nod. Of course there is. He waits as you catch up, then speaks as you step off the bridge. There was once a traveler who refused to move through fog. He said, "I cannot see the mountain, so the mountain must not be there." He waited days, then weeks. But the fog did not lift. Only when he finally walked forward in uncertainty did he discover that the mountain had never left. It had only asked for trust. You feel the truth of that settle in your chest. How often do we demand clarity before we act. How often does fear of not knowing keep us frozen? "I've waited a long time," you whisper, "to be sure about so many things." The elder looks gently toward the mist. Certainty is a fair weather friend. Trust, though trust, walks with you, even when the road disappears. You walk again, deeper into the fog. Each step muffled, each sound dimmed, like the world is holding its breath. There are no clear landmarks now, no bold signs, just the quiet sound of your own movement and his. And yet, you're not lost. Then, he adds, the Buddha taught, just as a lamp in the darkness reveals the way, so too does mindfulness reveal the path through confusion. You breathe into that. Each step becomes a choice, not an assumption. And then you reach a clearing. The mist still hangs in the air. But here the moon breaks through, just enough to reveal a small stone bench and a carved post in the ground beside it. Tied to the post with a thin string is a paper tag fluttering ever so slightly in the breeze. You approach and read the words on it. The bridge does not ask for certainty, only footsteps. You turn to the elder. Who writes these things? He smiles, not answering. Perhaps no one. Perhaps everyone. You sit on the bench, the fog curling around your legs like a cat. He remains standing this time, looking out into the dim. Then he tells another story. There was a monk who walked the same path each day. One morning, a fog rolled in. He was afraid. He'd never seen the trail this way, shrouded, shifting. He turned back. The next day, he tried again. The fog returned. Again he retreated. But on the third day, an old nun stopped him and said, "The path has not disappeared. Only your vision has. Do not confuse the two." That day, he walked forward, step by step, and he discovered that the fog made him pay more attention, not less. You close your eyes and feel the truth of that in your body. When you can't see far, you look near. When you don't know what's next, you return to what is now. You look down at your hands, the same hands that once clenched in frustration, now rest lightly on your lap. Present, empty, still. What if the elder says peace isn't always found in knowing, but in walking anyway? The fog moves through the clearing, revealing, then hiding, then revealing again. Like a teacher who lets you glimpse the answer, but never for long. You speak without thinking. I think I've been afraid that if I take the wrong step, everything will fall apart. The elder looks at you tender. And what if the wrong step is still a step? He crouches beside a small patch of moss at the base of the bench. A single white flower has begun to bloom there, tiny and trembling. Even in fog, he whispers something, knows how to grow. You smile, a real one, not because the fog has lifted, but because you no longer need it to. You rise again, stepping forward into the shifting gray. The path is still unclear, but you walk, and as you move through the mist, you carry a new question. Not fearful, but open. What if clarity is not something you find, but something you grow into step by step? You look ahead where the elder disappears briefly into the veil of fog, and you follow, one breath at a time, one footfall after the other, trusting not the view, but the movement, trusting not the light, but the presence, trusting yourself. The fog begins to thin as you walk just enough for shapes to return. Trees, stones, the outline of the temple rooftops far below their curved tiles, catching the moonlight like the spine of a sleeping dragon. The night air is rich now, thick with scent-wet pine earth, the faint sweetness of plum blossoms carried from somewhere unseen. And then the rain returns, but not like before. Not in steady droplets or sweeping gusts. This rain comes gently, like an apology whispered into your hair. It doesn't chill, it soothes. Each drop feels less like weather and more like blessing. You pause, turn your face toward the sky, and close your eyes. Let it fall, let it touch you. The elder doesn't stop. He walks ahead with bare, unhurried steps, his robe gradually darkening with dampness. He doesn't rush to shelter or raise a sleeve against the rain. He receives it. You follow again more slowly now. Each step feels like a ritual, a movement full of invitation, and then he speaks. Do you dream often? You blink the rain from your lashes. Sometimes he nods. I once had a dream that changed the way I held anger. You draw nearer, curious. What happened? He turns toward you. The rain beading on his brow, his face softened by memory. In the dream, there was a storm, not outside, but inside. Thunder in the ribs, wind behind the eyes. A storm made of every feeling I had never fully felt. You nod. You've known that storm. I stood beneath it. He continues and screamed at the sky. But instead of lightning, the clouds wept. Not in rage, in apology. The rain fell so gently, and I heard it say, "Forgive me. I was trying to protect you." The words settle in your chest, like warm tea poured into a cold cup. Your anger spoke to you. You ask. He nods. It did not shout. It cried. You stand in the rain together. Now, still and upright, like two trees that have agreed to wait out the weather rather than defy it. And then, with a quiet smile, the elder continues. There's a story I was told as a child, a story of a river spirit who lived beneath a mountain. Each time villagers bathed in the stream, they felt peace. But one day, someone dropped their anger into the water. The spirit swallowed. It confused. She began to thrash flood boil. The villagers feared her. But one girl, seeing the spirit's pain, stepped into the torrent and said, "You're not angry, you're hurt." The river wept for 3 days, and on the 4th, it flowed gently again. You listen as the rain falls on leaves, stones, your shoulders. Every drop seems to echo the story, a soft rhythm of sorrow slowly being seen. Do you think you say that our anger only wants someone to step into it with kindness? The elder bows his head. I do. You close your eyes again, and suddenly you remember moments in your life when no one stepped in, when your pain twisted into sharpness because no hand came to touch the wound. You remember yelling when you wanted to be held. You remember shutting down because it felt safer than speaking. And now standing here in the rain, you wonder, what if I could be that someone for myself? You exhale. The rain doesn't stop, but it begins to feel holy. The elder places a hand on your shoulder, not to guide, not to lead, just to affirm that you're not alone. The Buddha taught, he says gently, you yourself, as much as anyone in the entire universe, deserve your love and compassion. But sometimes it takes the rain to remind us. The clouds above shift slightly, revealing a sliver of moonlight. A single droplet rolls down your temple and falls from your chin, just as a leaf above releases its own tear to the ground. Tell me, the elder asks quietly, what part of your pain have you mistaken for poison when it was only asking for kindness? You don't answer, but inside you feel the question untying knots. You both begin walking again, slower than before, not avoiding the puddles, not seeking the dry spots. And all around you, the world listens. The trees lean in, the stones glisten, the earth breathes deeper. You reach the covered hallway of the temple, its roof wide enough to shelter you both. You stand beneath it, dripping, but not shivering, just wet, just awake. And you whisper, almost without meaning to, I think, I forgive my anger. The elder looks at you with the softest smile. Then it has done its job. You step forward and look out at the falling rain. This time, you don't wish it would stop. You just let it fall. And with every drop, something inside you grows softer, not weaker, more human, more whole. The rain fades by the time dawn hints at the horizon, and the world seems to pause just long enough for you to notice how still it can become when it's been thoroughly rinsed. Water clings to the tips of pine needles. Roof tiles glisten like obsidian. The earth beneath your feet is dark, rich content. Inside the meditation hall, a single candle burns. You step across the threshold with reverence, each footfall soft against the worn wooden floor. The elder is already seated, his posture upright, but gentle hands resting lightly in his lap. He nods toward the cushion across from him, the same one you've used before, now slightly warmer from past stillness. You sit and breathe. In, out. The flame flickers between you, steady but alive. You find yourself mirroring it upright, small, glowing from within. The wax has pooled in its dish, still fluid, and you sense it won't be long before it sets. The elder speaks, but only after a long, full silence. Do you remember your first breath? You blink slowly. The first breath ever. He smiles. No. The first breath you truly noticed. You close your eyes. Yes, that moment days or hours ago. It's hard to tell now, when you stopped trying to be calm and simply were. When breath returned, not as a task, but as a truth. I remember, you whisper. He nods. Breathing, he says, is the body's way of saying, we begin again. Every breath a cycle, a choice, a chance to return. You watch the candle. Its tiny flame sways, but does not falter. Then the elder offers another teaching, simple but complete. The Buddha said, little by little, a person becomes good as water drops fill a jar. You feel that, not in your mind, but in your rib cage. The way you've softened, the way your anger, your confusion, even your tiredness, they've all been accepted, breathed, withheld. The elder continues. There was once a man who visited a monk and asked how to attain peace. The monk handed him a bowl of water and said, "Stir it." He did. "Now watch." So the man watched as the water slowly settled, the sediment drifting downward until the bowl was clear again. The monk smiled and said, "You do not find peace by force. You let it settle. You sit with that. Your own body is a bowl. The breath is the settling, and you realize you are already clearer than before." You look again at the candle. The wax is deeper now, lower. The light still burns, and the elder says, so many of us try to do peace, to manufacture it. But peace is not a construction. It's an uncovering, like a mountain behind mist, like a heart behind hurt. You breathe in, and this time you feel your breath all the way down, into the belly, into the soles of your feet. You breathe out, and it feels like letting go of 1,000 things you no longer need to carry. He leans forward slightly. When we forget to breathe, we forget to be. And when we forget to be, we begin to fear what we're not. You nod. No resistance now. No clever reply. Just understanding. The candle wavers for a moment, then returns. You close your eyes again. One breath, then another. The elder says nothing now. There's no need. The breath is enough. Still, your mind wanders gently, like a child tugging at your sleeve. You think of your anger again, not with heat, not even with shame, just familiarity. Like someone you once sat beside in silence, neither of you sure what to say, and you realize it's not gone. It's not banished, but it's been invited to rest, to take a seat, to breathe. It no longer clings. It no longer kicks. It simply waits calm beside your stillness. You whisper into the room, not for the elder, not even for yourself, but for the space around you. I'm still learning how to stop resisting the breath. And you hear it answer, not with words, but with presence. The elder opens his eyes, looks at the candle, and speaks once more. There will be days when the breath is shallow, days when the wax cools quickly, when the anger returns like wind. That's not failure. That's living, you whisper. And on those days, he smiles. One breath, then another. The wax begins to set. The light continues, and so do you, breathing here, now, as if for the first time. The air feels softer now, the kind of softness that comes not just from weather, but from understanding. The meditation hall rests behind you as you step once again into the cool embrace of night. The stars have returned, bold, bright, scattered across the sky like rice grains spilled on dark silk. You follow the elder down a narrow trail that winds between rock walls and wind-worn trees. The path opens into a wide canyon beyond the monastery grounds, a place few wander to at this hour. Here the world feels wet and secret. The air carries a crisp silence, the kind that makes even your smallest thoughts sound loud. You speak none of them. Not yet. The canyon opens its arms to the sky, and the moon, now high and silver, shines down upon both of you. The elder leads you to the edge of a large, flat stone that juts out over the open space. You sit side by side. The elder breathes slowly and says, "Do you hear it?" You tilt your head. Silence. Then ever so faintly a sound, your own voice, echoing back the last word spoken. Hear it. You smile. The canyon talks. He nods. It listens first, then speaks. You sit quietly, allowing the space to listen to you. And then you speak softly. Peace. The echo comes back. Peace. It's like the world is bowing to your word. You see, the elder says, when we yell into the canyon, we get yelling in return. But when we whisper, it whispers back. He turns to you. This is what most of us don't realize about life. It's always answering. Just in the tone we ask. You look out across the canyon, vast and endless, and you wonder how many of your days have been filled with loud, sharp calls, and whether the world responded in kind. He adds, the Buddha once said, "Whatever words we utter should be chosen with care, for people will hear them and be influenced by them, for good or ill." But I think this also includes the words we speak inside ourselves. You nod. You think of the names you've called yourself, the judgments whispered in your own mind, the ones no one hears, but that echo louder than any sound. The elder continues. There was once a teacher who told his students, "Be kind, for the world listens." One student replied, "But I never speak." The teacher smiled and said, "You think so." You both laugh quietly. The canyon laughs too. And then you ask, "Do our thoughts echo, even when we don't say them aloud?" The elder folds his hands in his lap. Of course, every thought ripples, if not outward, then inward. And every ripple returns. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it returns. You let that land in your chest, a truth you already knew, but had never quite spoken aloud. You close your eyes, and in the stillness of your breath, a thought arises. It's not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It simply is. I want to be someone who whispers peace into the world so it can echo back. You speak the word again, peace, and again the canyon answers, peace. The elder stands now, brushing his robes with his palms. He walks a few steps ahead and speaks into the open air. Anger. You wait. Anger. Then he whispers, compassion. The canyon returns compassion. He turns to you. So the question becomes, what will you call out into your life? You look up at the stars. They say nothing, but they shimmer in response. You speak once more, this time a little stronger. Stillness. The answer glides back. Stillness. You rise with him, and together you begin the walk back. Your footsteps are slower now, but not from tiredness, from intention, from presence. The canyon fades behind you, but something stays with you. The understanding that your life is not only something you walk through, it's something that echoes your every step. The elder looks at you as if reading your thought. What if he says, the world doesn't just echo what you say, but who you are? You walk a little taller, not from pride, from alignment, from the sense that if your breath can be an offering, if your thoughts can be a prayer, then maybe your entire life can become a quiet, luminous echo. You return to the monastery gates. The night is nearly over, but you are not finished, because something new has just begun. A different voice inside you, a softer one that bows before it speaks, one that listens before it calls. And as you step across the threshold, the echo follows you home, not loud, not boastful, just gently there, here. You return to the monastery garden, where the night first began, the one lit by soft lanterns and the hush of stillness. The air is lighter now. The garden has changed in no visible way, and yet everything is different. Or perhaps it's you. The elder gestures toward the bench beneath the cherry tree, the same one where you first sat, where your anger once burned quietly, like a coal behind your ribs. You sit again, but now the bench doesn't feel like a place to solve something. It feels like a place to rest. The elder sits beside you without a word. No need for stories now. You've heard enough. You've become part of them. The cherry tree above is still in bloom, but some petals have fallen since you first arrived. They rest on the bench, the ground even in your lap, like tiny pink reminders that time moves, whether we notice or not. You breathe in, and now each breath feels like part of the garden itself. You notice with quiet surprise that you're smiling, not a forced smile, not one you've practiced, just a soft inward curve of the lips. A smile that belongs to no one in particular. A smile that lives with you, not because anger is gone, but because you've sat beside it long enough to see through it. The elder turns to you and speaks gently. Do you remember when you told me you were angry? You nod. I do. And now you pause. You touch your chest, not to check for anger, but to see what's there now. Now you say, I'm still me, but less clenched. He smiles, and that's enough. Then he says, there is a final story I'd like to leave with you. You lean in. There was once a young monk overwhelmed by his emotions. Joy, sorrow, desire, rage. He went to his master and said, I feel like I'm filled with storms. The master took him to the top of a hill overlooking a still lake. Throw this rock into the water, he said. The monk obeyed. The rock sank with a splash, and ripples spread. Now wait, said the master, and together they watched the ripples slow until the lake returned to glass. This, said the master, is your true nature. Still, clear, capable of holding anything and returning to peace. You exhale, and somewhere inside, you feel the lake surface settle. You look around the garden again, the lanterns, the petals, the stones, everything is just as it is. Nothing has changed. And yet it feels like the whole world has taken one long, patient breath with you. The elder rises now. He doesn't offer advice or final words. He only says, the bell has rung. But only inside you. You stand with him. You walk the garden's path one last time. At its center, near the koi pond, stands a small bronze bell. You hadn't noticed it earlier. It has no rope, no striker. You simply bow to it, and in your heart it rings. A bell that needs no sound, a piece that needs no explanation. You watch the koi swirl gently beneath the water's surface. Golden shapes in a moonlit dream. And you realize you are not smiling at your anger anymore. You are smiling with it, because now it is no longer a stranger, just a boy and a breeze and a bell that rings without sound. Just you, whole, here, still. And now, dear listener, let your breath soften, your body grow heavier, and your thoughts loosen their grip. You've walked a long path tonight, not with your feet, but with your heart, through gardens, bamboo groves, misty bridges, and silent bells. You've sat beside a cat, followed a lantern, watched a cracked cup offer tea. You've touched the quiet that waits beneath every storm. Let the imagery blur now. Let the garden dissolve behind closed eyes. The moonlight is still there, glowing faintly behind your breath. The soft whisper of bamboo in the wind still lingers in your ribs. Let those sounds carry you deeper into rest. Each breath you take is a falling petal. Each exhale is the wind that carries it away. You've learned what it means to smile at anger, not because it's gone, but because you've learned to bow to it, to listen without fear, to hold without clinging, to let it pass like a rain that comes only to cleanse. No need to chase dreams now. They will come to you, slowly, gently, like mist rolling in from the hills. Tonight, you are the candle, the still lake, the pebble that laughed, the mountain that watches. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to fix. You are not broken. You are blooming. Now sleep, sleep. As the monk sleeps beneath stars and silence, and the hush of everything made whole again, the bell has rung, but not for waking, only for returning. Good night, friend. Rest well.